the healing in a way that came was when he said, son, actually, I'm very proud of you. I know I've never said this, but I know all the things that you have been doing. I read your letters. I know, my ACS friends, and they tell me the things that you have been doing, and I'm very proud of you. And those were actually his last words, because after that he slipped into a coma. And a few days later he passed on. So when I was writing my memoir, that really struck me. For so many years, my father never ever told me he was proud. In fact, he's always scolding.
Hi everyone, I'm Divya, the founder of 4360. I'm really excited to share that, we are starting our first podcast series. So for 4360, we are a very young NGO, and our purpose is really to build self-worth and strengths in children, bringing the community together with unity to make that happen. So this podcast series is really an aim to bring the ecosystem together to really help to bring the voices that shapes children's well-being. So we have invited our guest speakers, we have invited previous educators, leaders, community partners that really plays a part when it comes to children's well-being. So we hope that this will be an important dialogue for all of us to really take note of what is the next step that we should maybe take note of to address well-being further in children. So today, I'm excited to introduce our first episode topic, Affirmation over Grade. I'm really honored to introduce our guest speaker, who's a veteran for over 24 years. He has served as a principal in schools like ACS Junior, ACS Barker Road, and Queensway Secondary School as well. And he's a person who really advocates for academic results as well as children's well-being at the same time, treating them equally. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the guest speaker, Peter Tan.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for welcoming me here. And in case you're looking at me and wondering why I'm wearing shades, it's because I'm blind, not because I want to be trendy.
Yes, thanks for coming down today. I'm really very appreciative. And before this, we even had past conversations, and I could really sense how much passionate you are when it comes to children's well-being. But before we start, can you just share a little bit about what motivated you to be an educator in the first place?
Well, growing up, I had my grandfather who influenced me a lot on the importance of education. And going to school was a nice experience, good friends. But more than that, as I grew up, I found that as part of my growth and development, and especially as a Christian, I felt a calling to want to be a teacher. And so that's why I chose teaching as a vocation. And although I had some challenges with being terminated from my training program, but by God's grace, I did become a teacher, and for 40 years, and managed to serve 24 of this as a principal.
That's lovely. Yeah, and how did your school experience, what was some memorable school experience you had when you were in your younger days?
As a student, I had very caring teachers.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so that really makes the difference. Of course, I had very strict and firm teachers too. So I think all of us would have that balance. Yes. I think teachers come in all shapes, forms, and types, and they make the whole experience for the child. So sometimes when parents react that the teacher is being very strict, I often say, look, not everybody's like that, and why is the teacher being strict? Then there is good reason for doing the things they are doing. If they are not unreasonable, then allow your child to grow that way. They will learn better. They will grow better, and invariably, the parents do come back at the end of the year and tell me, actually, they are very caring, although they are very firm. And I think my child became a better person because of it. So, sometimes parents understandably are protective, but I think we also need to chill a little.
Yes, definitely. Because I mean, for 4360, we really believe that, educators, teachers, they play an important part when it comes to children's well-being, right? Because they are almost there for half a day, more than that, right? Like they start at 7 a.m., correct me if I'm wrong.
7:30 school starts usually. The teachers practically spend till about 3 or 4 o'clock in school, but not always with the same group of students. So sometimes people perceive that they only work half a day, but they don't. There are lots of meetings and planning activities that go on too.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks for sharing about that. I think that's also a very important statement that I wanted to highlight. Is like teachers are really doing their best, when it comes to, addressing the children's well-being together with the academic as well. So I just wanted to also understand your perspective when you were a leader in a school. How do you manage this to make well-being of the children to be treated as equal, to academic performance when it comes to the teacher's lens? Because a lot of times, people have this perception that, we are trying to be only academic focused, but I feel that has evolved along the way. It's definitely evolved a lot. So I want to hear from you regarding that.
Yeah, I think the space has shifted quite a bit. I remember when I took on my first role as a principal, there were exams from primary 1 onwards, and then they were streamed into the different classes based on their academic performance. So one of the first decisions that I actually made was, firstly, to tell the parents, okay, we will not have exams in primary 1. Only at the end of primary 2 will we have an exam, and they will go up as a class. So there's no promotion in a sense. So it takes the weight off the students, the children, and also the teachers. Because the pressure to make sure that they do so well in the first year of schooling. So we would have tests, but just to give feedback to the parents about how their child is performing, but not so that they have to be among the best. And then when they went on to primary 3 upwards, it was not, so in the past it was the best class and then all the way to the worst class, in that sense, academically.
Yes, academically,
But I decided that I think then we had 8 classes. So I said, okay, we will have 3 classes which we will rank the students. The other 5 classes, they will just be randomly mixed based on their performance. I mean, I didn't want them to think that they didn't have to work. They still have to work towards an excellent effort. But it was not the be all and end all. And after primary 2, after primary 3, they would change around in their classes. And that way they also got to make more friends. So I think I was pleasantly surprised that many of the parents were very receptive to it. I had a few parents who came to see me, of course, and I explained to them the rationale, but I was glad they accepted it, and things went pretty well.
Yeah. I'm sure that's a lot of like change management as well, right? Like whether it is like with the parents, whether it is in the school, and as like a leader as well, managing all these changes. Yeah. And I'm glad that that transition happens, I would say, smoothly with a lot of hard work, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, yeah. I just wanted to also like talk a little bit more about in one of your interviews, you actually shared that a good education isn't about grades, right? So you kind of focused on like character, creativity, and well-being, not just academic performance. I would like to hear more about that. Yeah, like what made you to say a statement like good education is not only about grades? Yeah.
Well, I was a ACS boy, and I think in my time, the last class was K. Okay. So you can imagine, A to K, and if you were in A, you are the best, and then K, you're like the worst. And then when I became a teacher and I taught in ACS, the last class was M.
Oh, okay.
So even more segregation, right? And I really didn't like that, because knowing my seniors and people I know in business and the like in Singapore, who were ACS boys, it didn't really make a big difference whether they were A class or so why that overemphasis on grades all the time? If we could find a better balance where students learn because it's meaningful, it's enjoyable, rather than just to pass exams, score the very best. Because ultimately, the majority will move on to the next level without too much difficulty. All right. I would say it's not that you don't put in effort and hard work. You have to, but that mustn't affect the way you think about yourself and put yourself down that I'm no good. I feel sad for students when they come and tell me I'm no good, I'm lousy because my grades are this. And I've often seen students who actually have practically all A's, and then they're telling me I'm no good. And what's wrong with you?
Why?
But unfortunately, parents, at least in the earlier years, have that kind of mentality that their child must score A's in everything, must be in the top band. And they put a lot of stress on the poor child, without realizing that actually there are many unintended effects. So I think I'm glad in my years as a principal to see that move in our education system. And it's not to say that rigor is not important. It is important. Discipline is important, but that the grades do not define you. I always remind the students, it does not define who you are.
I think that's such a salient point, because like a lot of times, like what you mentioned, students, or I would also say maybe parents, they tend to associate, like their self-worth with grades. So like what you mentioned, right? If I fail means I'm not a good person, but they tend to overlook that, hey, I do have other strengths, like, my personal character, like you mentioned about creativity. So all these things are strengths which I feel like it's not emphasized enough, or like rather explored enough with the student to even say that, hey, that is one of my strengths that actually contributes to me as a person. So I'm just also curious to know, like, what's your definition of like well-being for children? And because it will give me an idea of like your perception of it. And in your view, like, what else can we do to achieve that well-being, like optimal well-being for children? Yeah.
Well, I think children come from different sectors in society. So the basic needs are important, and the security of home, the ability to function well with their parents. Those are important things. I worry, as you were asking that question, that made me think of an incident that I had to work with. This boy was in the normal academic stream, and he did not meet the criteria to go into the express course. So in Sec 2, so his two form teachers were quite sensitive to the issues with his parents. So actually when he was going to go home with the results and report card, they thought they should accompany the boy home, and we really have teachers who know their students, and really care for them. So I said, yeah, go with him. So they went to the boys' home, and when they came back and told me what happened, I really felt sad for the boy, because when they got to the flat, there was a gated area, and then there's a space before you go into the living room with the main door. And they told me, when we went there, the mother opened the door for us, but told the son to stay out there. And they wouldn't let him in.
Okay. But it's because of?
Because he didn't make it to express
Oh dear. That's so.
So where's the well-being for
Yes.
this boy?
Yes.
And they were so worried that the boy may be made to sleep out in the corridor space, in a sense, because the whole time they were there trying to explain to the mother, that there are certain expectations that have been already shared with the parents. It doesn't mean that the child doesn't qualify to go to express that year. The following year he can't. All these things, but the mom just wouldn't have any of it. That he must have gotten that grade to get him there. If not, so it was it the child's well-being that was being considered, or was it their face?
Yes.
Which sometimes is over exaggerated by parents. So we need to look at a child's total person. Because not always getting the top grades at the lower secondary level will mean they do it at the upper secondary level. I've seen students who don't do very well, and as they grow, as they work towards their goals, they flourish, and in the end they do very well and can go on to university and do very well in life too. So how you build self-esteem, how you give a child the positive can-do spirit. I when I was in ACS Parkour, I used to challenge the students. We did overseas community programs, and I used to tell the students, we go to the Southeast Asian countries, and I say I am sending you all out now to bring a blessing in terms of material, because they go and do work and things like that for the kids. But I hope in time you all will go back there and bring a blessing by, whether it's business or it's community work or whatever. And after this trip in Sec 3, I would challenge them, if you want to, the following year, you guys plan your own, and I will persuade teachers to go along with you. And I was glad that I had students who took the challenge up. And even though it was a Sec 4 year, O-level year, they decided to plan the trip and go and be a blessing. And this is more than just doing community work. Really, it's also to help them understand that in the future, when they are adults, they can go there and set up businesses which can then bless a country too. And I think this is also about their well-being, right? Their confidence, the can-do spirit, and to strive to give off their best.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think the story earlier you shared about the boy, especially, not being allowed to go into his own house just because of the grades. It shows like how I feel like there's a lot of underlying factor that might even influence the parents to make him do that in the first place, right? Not enter the house. And I feel like one important aspect to it is parents' education. And I'm very fortunate, like also, and I feel like through that story and also based on what you shared, I think, the educators from the school really played a part to really make sure that he's brought home safely, doesn't do anything, no harm. Yeah, so it shows that a lot of teachers are there, to really care beyond just school and in gates itself, right? They take the extra mile and to go down and even to communicate with parents, etc. And I think one thing that also, it brings me to the next question. You also once shared, right? Fathers, don't wait till you are dying to tell your son that you are proud of him. Because when I saw that line, I think it kind of hit me hard also, because like I can relate to it also. So it's more of like when I saw that, I wanted to hear your perspective as well. Sure. Because when you told me about the story about the fact that they asked him to stand outside, it shows that maybe their definition of the child's success is grades only. They don't tend to affirm anything else beyond that, right? Maybe, yeah. So where do you feel like we have, are we a affirmative culture in general, like in Singapore? And like if if no, or yet to achieve, what is something that we should start doing to achieve that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're changing.
Okay.
Improving, actually, I
Yeah.
would say. Not just changing. Changing can be for the worse.
Yeah.
Right? But I think perspectives are changing for the better. A backstory to this, the why I wrote that was because I wrote a book called Not by Sight after I retired, and it's a memoir, and that story is about engagement I had with my father. My father was unfortunately not a very kind man. Okay, so he had another family, and there were a lot of issues for my brother and I growing up with him and my mother, of course. And so there, I tried different ways to engage to build a father-son relationship. But he was not always the kindest. I wouldn't list the things that happened. Anyway, so this incident happened when my half brother called me and said, "Oh, Dad's in hospital. He fell down along the walkway, and someone got an ambulance, and they sent him to Tantoxing." So it was Good Friday, and I told my wife, I think we should go visit him, and we went to the hospital, and there was all his relatives who were there. And the first thing he looked at me when he saw me was, "Come for what?" And then after that, he went on a bit more, and so we stayed a while, and I told my wife, "Okay, I think we better
just leave." Okay.
We always get scolded again, which she was used to doing, I guess. So on over the weekend, I thought I wanted to go and visit him, but the thought of going there and going through that nasty experience was a bit daunting. Anyway, he looked so healthy. Monday morning, I had a phone call from the hospital and said, "Get your family. Your father will not make it." And I was shocked, because he looked so healthy that night, that afternoon. So I rushed down and I told my wife to get our children, and when I went to his bed, he was quite weak, not the man I saw a few days earlier. And I sat at the bedside with him, to talk to him, and the healing in a way that came was when he said, "Son, actually, I'm very proud of you. I know I've never said this, but I know all the things that you have been doing. I read your letters. I know, my ACS friends, and they tell me the things that you have been doing, and I'm very proud of you." And those were actually his last words, because after that he slipped into a coma, and a few days later he passed on. So when I was writing my memoir, that really struck me. For so many years, my father never ever told me he was proud.
Yeah.
In fact, it's always scolding. And that was something I wanted to urge fathers to do, because and that's why when I became a principal, one of the things that I spent a lot of time and energy on was getting fathers to play a bigger role in their children's lives. Singaporean fathers are very busy. One incident that I briefly will talk about is SARS. I don't know whether you remember SARS. Okay, where
I think I was born.
You were born, okay, yes, maybe.
Okay.
It was early 2000s. You're that young. Okay, but SARS is precedes COVID, and it's different from COVID. But the first people to die from SARS were Singaporeans, right? So nobody wanted Singaporeans to go into their countries. So all the fathers couldn't fly out to work, And I had started a father's prayer group in ACS Junior that time. So we came together and we spent an hour or so sharing, praying. And one of the fathers said, hey, for the next few weeks, we're not going to be traveling, Can we just come back and meet every Saturday and do this? And I said, yeah, why not? Let's do it. And actually, after the students came back from SARS, I spoke to quite a number of them and they said, SARS was the best thing. Dad was home.
Oh, okay.
Because they couldn't fly
out. So
usually they will be out of the country for weeks. But Dad was home, and that really struck home for me that fathers play such an important role in the home that they don't realize. They let the moms run everything, do all the tuition and chauffeuring and whatever else. And they probably come home just to be the disciplinarian. So, in ACS Junior, we have various father-son activities where only fathers and sons can go. Moms not allowed. I mean, one of the things we did was the father and son camp.
Oh, that's nice.
It's held at the end of the year at the Scouts camp. And actually, the highlight of the camp, every year the students pray for rain.
Oh, okay.
Because
hot?
No, hot is one thing, but when it rains, they can't do the camp activities, right? We let the kids go out and play football.
Okay.
And they are out playing football in the rain with their fathers.
Oh, nice. They want that.
The fathers want that too. Because it brings back old memories for them,
Yes.
But if mothers were around, they'll say, no, you get a cold.
Strict, okay.
But actually, I don't remember too many boys who ever got sick, because after the game, they'll go and get a shower and dry themselves, and we'll serve them hot Milo and whatever. The bonding. And now I meet my former students who are fathers, and they tell me, all the memories they had, that they want to be the kind of father for their child now. And I think that's a very important thing. So, don't wait till you're on your deathbed to tell your child that you're proud of it.
Thanks for sharing that and opening up about your story as well. It's really, I can relate to it. Because I think like a father figure really played a very important role, especially in my upbringing as well. And I liked something that you said earlier, like those words were a healing moment for you, right? Because a lot of times, actually, it's not about grand solutions to addressing well-being or, like contributing to self-worth for these children. It's actually just simple words of affirmation. It really plays a huge part, right? Whether it is come from parents, whether it is come from like the teachers, all right? But at the same time, we do acknowledge that, our teacher community themselves, they also come through from their journey. So sometimes most of them also are not used to like affirmative tone or affirmative like language, because they may not have experienced this when they were younger. So this kind of like, prevents, or not prevents, but rather it takes a more slower transition, especially if you want a more affirmative culture as a whole school approach or a whole community approach, right? So I think for me, how I'm also trying to understand, how can school help to nurture more emotional openness, positive reinforcement and affirmation in the school culture itself?
I mean, I would say, as having been a principal for over 20 years, it starts with the leader. So how the principal cares for the staff. So in the last few years, we've heard some of MOE's workplace kind of measures, and all that. I started that some years ago. So telling, for instance, telling the heads that telling my staff actually, any messages that come after 7 p.m. you don't have to reply to.
Yes.
All right. Any work that is sent out after 5 o'clock, and supposed to be handed the next morning. you don't have to worry about it. And if those things come to me, if it happens, I mean, I tell everybody, so the heads of department know too, then you come to me and I will manage it, And I think it's caring for them to have space with their family. They need their downtime too, And I decided to come out with that practice because I was getting WhatsApp messages from my staff at 10:30 in the night.
Oh dear, teachers are overworked actually.
They find pockets of time. I understand that. Even for myself, I would want to spend time with my children, so I would do that until they go to bed, and then I open my laptop and start working. Until I want to go to bed. So but I have to fight that temptation, And if I send out an email, I shouldn't expect them to reply me, and I should expect that at most it comes the next day, or it should be something that can wait a few days. If it's that urgent, then I need to contact them the first thing in the morning, But at least let them sleep.
I'm sure, yeah. So from what I'm hearing, also it starts from the leaders as well as the teachers. When they experience that affirmative culture within their ecosystem of like teachers and leaders, it naturally starts to pass down to the children as well. When we work with our partners, we also say, like sometimes when we have team meetings, we always start by going straight into like, okay, what we need support in, and then they will get a bit stressed. But then we tend to shift that perspective and start with like what went well, like in the school today, what did you do well, right? So it kind of give a boost to the educators first, that hey, they are doing a good job. Sometimes things pop up, but that's why we all are here to support one another. Yeah, so I really love that analogy as well. So like it kind of passed down to the children. Yeah. So in your experience, I think with all the transition and also transformation of children's well-being, right? What do you think is the one next step that needs to be taken by all schools in Singapore when it comes to addressing children's well-being?
I think I wouldn't say there's the one next step.
Okay.
Actually, I think a lot of good steps have been taken. I think what would really be good is everybody in the whole ecosystem takes a good hard look at it and decide for ourselves what can I do as an individual to make things better for the teacher, for the student, if I'm a parent, for the teacher, think about for the parent and the student, because it's actually an individual decision, that also needs to happen. Right? Just as much as there can be policies, there can be practices put in place, but as a person, I need to think about what I can do. So I always believe that it's not just policies. There are so many policies.
Yes, understand.
But at the end of the day, what do I want to make do about this policy? Even if I cannot be a policy maker, how can I influence the thinking there? So there's no such thing as a low man in the totem pole, I would say. Everybody plays a part in this whole ecosystem. So if every parent goes to a meet the parent session at the end of the year or end of the semester, not to find fault with their child or the teacher, but to go there and affirm the teacher. I have teachers who tell me, they feel good. In the past they were, they go into such sessions sometimes with trepidation. I don't know what the parents are going to say about me, but the parent comes and smiles, and some of them offer a cake or a drink to the teacher. I think little things, no need for grand gestures, but the fact that you are thoughtful, that you affirm the effort of the teacher, it goes a long way. And it goes around, to benefit the child, which in the end benefits the family. And as if this can happen in Singapore, it benefits the nation.
Yes,
you know, so we all need to play a part in this to make it happen.
Wow, that's such a powerful statement. Also, when you say like everyone have a part to play in this, and not like it's like pointing fingers, you have to do it, or like you have to do it. Yeah, so I think that's really important.
I used to say to the teachers, every time you point your finger,
the others
are pointing back at you, you know.
Yes.
All right. So who's the buck? The buck stops here. I have to make the decision to do it. If I don't make the decision to do it, then I just keep waiting, because it may never happen.
Yeah, I just want to add on like one point that you said earlier, right? Like if the parents go to the teachers to affirm the teachers as well, and to find out, what actually they have been doing well, and affirm the teachers. I think at the same time, it would be good for parents to find out what the child has been doing well apart from grades, right? Like I think that shift is also needed. Yeah, because
so that's something that I emphasize a lot with the teachers, for the meet the parents. I say I know you have to talk about grades, because that's what the parents want to hear too.
Yeah.
But start off at least telling the parent what is the one or two good things about your son or daughter.
Yes.
That they see in the school that the parents don't see. And I think you start the conversation right.
Yes.
It helps.
Yes. Yeah. That's lovely. Yeah. I think one thing that I want to also understand, right? Because now well-being is technically, or like CCE, for example, when we talk about the character and citizenship education, it's not a graded like I would say graded subject, right? Compared to math, science, etc. So naturally, because of that, parents maybe feel like, okay, more focus has to be still in academics. Well-being is like secondary, right? So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts in terms of like, how can we start shifting this mindset? Or like, is there a way to like kind of reshift conversation, like even though like well-being is not graded, or like CCE is not graded, you have to kind of take it equally. So that's something I've always struggled with actually when I'm speaking to different stakeholders, but I want to hear your point of view regarding that.
I mean, understandably, we look at things that can be measured and give importance to it, but I think, and as a parent myself and a grandparent now, I feel so much better if I hear the teacher telling me, your son did this, and what a blessing it has been to the class, or we're so proud of him.
Yeah.
I think that can carry me for months.
Okay.
But an A, oh good, okay, then put that aside. But we tend to give more importance to that A. Because frankly, my children have gotten their A's, but I don't even remember them.
Which subject? Okay.
Right? But when if a teacher affirms, the contribution that they have made, that even the teacher notices, it is wonderful. But we tend to give more importance to the unimportant.
Yeah.
So I think that perspective as parents would have to shift, because even with my grandsons now, we hear feedback from the teachers about the thoughtfulness. And when they come back, when we affirm them, you can see that smile on their face that, oh, somebody was noticed it, and that helps them to grow much better than, I think, they're preschool now, so there are no grades, but building the confidence, for a child who's in school, if the parent balances, I wouldn't say focus so much on this and then they are failing grades all the way through, but have that balance in the different aspects of their growing up years, and that would help a child develop more holistically.
That's lovely. I think my last question, like I think it's really beautiful how we journeyed from the first question to here, and I've been like really like it's been really insightful to like now. But my last question to you is like, since we talk a lot about affirmation and positive qualities in children, is there any incident or like memory that you had with a student that kind of like made you think like, oh my goodness, I'm really proud of this student, you know, like because of what he did or the positive quality or the behavior that he actually did. Like that's something like, is there any incident that actually happened?
I share a story about this student, and I really am proud of the teachers who were involved too. I went to the school, and so this is a bit lengthy,
Okay.
but I still am in touch with this boy. You know, so one of the first things I had to do when I went to the school was being told that this boy played truant again. You know, the discipline mistress very angry, understandably.
Yeah.
So it was a couple of days and all before we got this boy back to school. And when he came back to school, I asked the discipline mistress, I was a new principal then, I said, what do you normally do for kids like this? And then she said, well, they have to be caned. So I said, okay, I mean, if that's the school's discipline process, we keep to it. You know, so I caned the boy, you know, and he behaved himself for a while, and then he skipped school again, you know. So I spoke to the mom. I know the mom had from the conversation probably issues that she was also grappling with, but we did what we could, and the boy functioned, you know, and then the following year, he went MIA again, you know, and we couldn't find him for a long time. Finally, the teachers managed to locate him. We found him, brought him back to school. He was so hungry. He had not eaten for days, you know, and he just ate up all the biscuits in the staff room, you know. And we called the mother because she had filed a beyond parental control complaint against the boy, and we said, you know, we're trying to get your son, you know, and she didn't come, so we were waiting. And then around about 7:30, the police came, you know, and the mother had reported him to the police, and the police took him into custody. So this boy ended up going to a boys' home, and had to stay in a boys' home and all that. And it was a long story, you know. But he's actually quite a bright boy, you know. So his O-level year, he was really in a boys' home, and he said he didn't have any financial support. So very bright. He could do bookkeeping. So one of my teachers kind of helped him get a sideline job doing some bookkeeping work, you know, and to earn some keep. And I told him, okay, if you do very well for your O levels, you know, I will help you to get a place in ACJC. And then because I was running the hostel, then we could put him up in the hostel on a scholarship. He had, at mid-year, I think he had 48 points. You can't even score that.
Oh, okay.
But practically everything was a fail or whatever, you know. Something like that. It was just this ridiculous score. You know?
Understand.
Because there's 6 subjects, 40 points. So he practically had 6, 7s and 8s and 9s for everything. You know. But he worked really hard. At O levels, he had 11 points.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
So I said, I'll keep my promise.
Yes.
And so we put him in the hostel. He stayed there for 2 years. And after that, he had to go to NS. In NS, the army camp was his home. You know, so when people booked out, he stayed. You know, people go out for weekends, he stayed. He had no home. His mom would take him back home. You know. So after he finished his army stint, he did well enough to qualify for SMU, you know, and I through a contact managed to get him hostel accommodation. and he's now an accountant.
Oh, wow. That's
You know?
lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I share this because we want to treat every child as an individual and not pigeonhole them, and write them off. Similarly, I mean, if his mom, I've encouraged him to try to keep in contact, but his mom is a bit difficult. But he had, through the years, he looked after his sisters, and he met his sisters to give them money for their studies and things like that. But this boy could have been written off, but an unfortunate family situation would have made things difficult. But I think educators, the social workers who are in the home, if everyone puts their part to building the person, we can make the difference in society, right? And I think that's what education is called to do. We are called to make that difference, right? To see every caterpillar become a butterfly, and give hope to the next generation, and build them, because as we do it for them, they will do it for the next person. And I think we want to build a virtuous cycle rather than a vicious cycle. And I think like the work you are doing, I think trying to reach out to schools, to educators, to parents, to see the value in their child, not measured by grades alone, okay, but to see what their strengths are, what their worth is, and build that in their child. What they'll become, we never know. But we do our part to make it happen.
And thanks for sharing that, and shout out to the student, and it's really nice to hear how he flourished from where he started, and it took just I'm sure there's a lot of people who was working with him, but I liked how you said that teachers, just found the strength that, he's good in bookkeeping, and, got him some opportunities to develop that as well. So I think that is something that I think we need such people, in around the children's community, to identify such strengths and develop it, so because sometimes the children themselves, they don't know their strengths. So it's up to the community around them, the people around them, to pick up this strength, and it will really make a huge difference in the child's life. Right. So yes, so I think we have come to the end of today's podcast. It was really amazing how you shared about the insights about children's well-being, affirmation, how teachers play a part as well beyond schools, taking the extra step to go beyond what they are supposed to do to take care of the children's well-being, and how affirmations and, strengths can really play a big part when it comes to the children's lives. So thank you so much once again for coming on board. Yes. So
it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.